Well, guys, after a few weeks off, we are back with our next review, the review of the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. And I found this one a little bit tricky to do. It doesn't mean that the race wasn't eventful, it certainly was eventful. There was so much drama, so many incidents. Things a little bit slippy due to the rain, which added extra things. But I found this difficult to do because for a lot of the bigger talking points, we've already spoken about them. Whether that be, my personal opinion on who's going to win the championship, and this race certainly doesn't change it because of the fact, the one that I'm tipping to win, Oscar Piastri, won the race. And obviously the situation for Lando Norris doesn't feel like that it's going to be that big of a deal. Mechanical incidents happen all the time. I suspect Piastri will get one later in the season, but call me out on that. Lance Stroll on the Friday and the Saturday, just again not with it. But again, we've spoken about Lance Stroll before, and we certainly have spoken about Ferrari before, and the absolute hell fest that is going on there. So actually, it's quite slim pickings for topics to talk about that are unique. And if you've got any, topics that you think are worth discussing, pop them in the comments below because, we can obviously find a way to talk about them as well. But what do we have to talk about? Well, we're going to juggle things up a bit. Normally we do our sort of lesser known winners, let's say, and talk about them and how well their race was, and then we'll do the big talking points. At the end of the day, one of the big talking points was the, let's say, lesser winner, for want of a better word, and it is a really good news story. So I want to touch on that last. I hope you don't mind me doing that. I want to touch on that last. So let's start off with a couple of topics that I've found that I sort of want to have a bit of a rant about. And the first one, it feels like it doesn't matter which sport you watch, whether it's soccer, football, whether it's Formula One, any sort of motorsport, whether it's tennis, right? We always seem to be talking about the stewardship, the referees, the guys that are charged with putting the rules in place. They're given the rule book and they are to make decisions based on that rule book. And look, we can be 50-50 on the actual decisions being made, and I do think that there was at least one decision where, at the very least, let's put it as the Carlos Sainz incident with Liam Lawson. Putting it diplomatically, I haven't yet seen the evidence that the FIA clearly have to have given Carlos Sainz his penalty. To me, it just didn't seem to make sense. If any blame was to be placed, it was, in my opinion, it would have been on Liam Lawson. But I feel like it was a racing incident, so I don't know whether it was that big of a deal. But I'm not bothered about the actual decisions themselves, because guess what? We're human beings. We're all going to look at things differently. Of course we are. What bothers me is the timing. Lewis Hamilton's been given a 5-second penalty, and he has broken a rule, sure, but the rule that he broke was before the race, and yet he's been given a penalty for the next race. Now, you might look at that and go, well, Lewis Hamilton crashed out. So giving him a 5-second penalty wouldn't have made sense for this race. And to a certain extent, you are right. But if the incident happened before the race, why are they looking into it after the race? There was a comment that was made. It was on the Channel 4 broadcast, where they during the commentary, and they basically said, "Well, they haven't got a lot on." Now, that was a little bit tongue in cheek because, of course, there are multiple things that the guys are looking into. Especially when you've got the track, rain and things like that. They're obviously going to be looking into: do we need to implement yellow flags? Do we need to implement red flags if it gets too wet? And all that sort of thing, and that makes sense. But how is there not like a dedicated corner for racing incidents? What is going on, genuinely? And there's two things I want to look at here to try and see what is going on. Firstly, is it that they're not knowledgeable enough on the rules to be able to implement the rules quickly and correctly? Or are there other factors in play? I think at the time when we really knew what was going on in the stewards' room, and it was during the Michael Massey days, and that was down to the fact we would hear the radios between the teams and the FIA. Now, before you guys jump on, I don't think they should be doing that, right? I really don't think we should be having more, "No, Michael, that is so not right," and it's called a motor race or anything like that. As memeable as those things are, I don't think that's the way. But I think there should be a little bit of transparency. Just incident, we get the incident noted, right? And then the incident under investigation. Just something as, if both teams are debating hard on a certain rule, or, in Lewis Hamilton's case, if Ferrari are debating hard that Hamilton shouldn't be penalised, I feel like something should be said. Protect the stewards. We want to give him a 5-second penalty for the Dutch Grand Prix before the race starts, but Ferrari is saying he doesn't deserve it. So we're going to investigate after the race. Just something. Because we could have been in a situation where this would have been a non-issue. Hamilton would have been given a 5-second penalty during the race, would have crashed out. I mean, look, I'm just saying justice in terms of, he should get a 5-second penalty if he's broken the rules. But why am I making such a big deal about this? Well, it's all very well and good if it happens in, let's say, the same season, or races change from race to race. I know that was a lot of races I just said there, right? But think about it this way. Imagine you're Oscar Piastri that did that, right? And you're given a 5-second time penalty whilst leading the race by 10 seconds. But because the FIA haven't investigated it until the next race, you actually do get the 5-second penalty when you're in a tight battle with Lando Norris, so you've basically lost out. Or worse still, think about it this way. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, last race of the season, they're on the same amount of points. Piastri or Lando Norris makes a little mistake that is a mistake that needs investigating, and then it doesn't get investigated till the end of the race, and then they get a penalty in the next season. And that might seem a little bit far-fetched, but we do have Valtteri Bottas with a penalty over his head when he starts the first race next year. So it could happen. And this almost goes back to this thing of why. And the only thing I can obviously draw on in terms of knowledge of what is going on in like adjudicators and things like that is through soccer and football. It's one of my favourite passions. And a lot of the things is they're almost so scared to make a mistake that they take too long and then make the mistake anyway. They take too long, and it almost feels like the FIA right now are so scared to make a mistake that they're not doing anything. And let's be honest, the Michael Massey gear, can you really imagine someone accidentally doing that? Can you really imagine someone going, "Oh, oops, I made a boo-boo and I've just checked"? No one's going to do that. Unless you are deliberately pushing an agenda, it's not going to happen. And I really feel like we're in this situation where all of the politics that's going on in the FIA is causing this lack of transparency, this lack of open door where Carlos Sainz wasn't allowed into the stewards, and just different things like that. And if it is because they're scared to make a mistake, why is it because they're scared to make a mistake? Are they in fear of their jobs? Are they in a situation where if they make a mistake, they're pretty much out of it? Suspended for a few races? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But for me, as a fan, I just want all the race incidents to be investigated straight away. And yes, it might carry over into the next race, but not because the FIA took their time, but because the driver, let's say I know Kimi Antonelli hasn't been necessarily been given a penalty for his incident with Charles Leclerc, but Kimi Antonelli in crashing him and Leclerc out gets a 5-place penalty. That makes sense. But getting a 5-place penalty in the race after the one that you could have had it, that seems bizarre. It's a complicated scenario, but it has highlighted that there's a process going on in the steward's room that needs ironing out, needs going quicker. And just give the opportunity for appeals to be made and things like that. Let teams appeal it after the decision's been made. I don't know why. I feel like I like the idea, right? I've currently got it on the timing boards where it's like a yellow exclamation mark and a red exclamation mark. Yellow exclamation mark when it's under investigation, a red exclamation mark when it's been the penalty's been given. And maybe there can be something along the side of it which basically gives an indication that the team are appealing the decision that you've just made. Get it done quick. Let the teams take the time. Let everyone see that is the situation. Make your decision quick, and let the teams bring out the rule book to confirm what just feels right. Just feels right. But that's enough on the stewards, because, like I say, the rant is not against them as such. If there is extra pressures that are being put upon them, whether from higher up, whether from teams or anything like that, that's meaning that they don't feel comfortable making decisions quickly or efficiently, is the best way of putting it. That's the Stewards. Now I want to take a step back. Before we talk about the good news, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Do you know that this is the second to last race we're going to have at Zandvoort? Yeah, I said that. Next year will be the last year that we have a race at Zandvoort. And yes, I know this is basically Verstappen propaganda circuit 101 alongside the Belgian Grand Prix. I know, yeah. And if you were asking me as a Hamilton fan, do I like the idea, a few years ago, then probably not. But I really think that we are going to miss out when Zandvoort drops off the calendar. Let me explain why. Whilst it is a very difficult track to overtake, it's still possible to overtake. It's a short track, so a lot of laps, potentially a lot of action. That means more back markers to make things a little bit interesting, more things to make it feisty. And it is on the North Sea, so there is a risk of rain every now and again. But more importantly than that is, well, the second most important reason is the Tarzan corner, the first hairpin, which gives a brilliant opportunity for overtaking. Fantastic, we even saw it was it Lando Norris that went past Verstappen around the outside? Absolutely beautiful that was. I'll go give him up credit to Lando Norris there. But it's actually this corner, this banked corner, which is the reason why I think it should stay. We don't have many banked corners in Formula One. I suppose there's technically a slight banking in the final corner of Monza, but not really, not as steep as this, right? And we saw in today's race that it is, it's easier to drive around it, but it's difficult to master. It's really difficult to master, in fact. It's a fantastic banking, and with the way that the cars are, I think they behave a little bit funny in banking corners, and I think that's something that should be considered. We're going to lose it. We're going to lose Zandvoort, but I think if we are to lose Zandvoort, this corner needs to be considered for future racetracks. Have something a little bit bizarre. Let's not have all racetracks the same. Let's not just have it where, it's more than likely going to have chicanes, and it's more than likely going to have hairpins because that's a. Have something like this. Something a little bit funky. Something a little bit different that means that the drivers go, right, okay, I am going into this circuit completely blind. Well, not completely blind, but you know what I mean. Like, we don't get this corner anywhere else. And it's the cool thing about Zandvoort, and it provided drama. As much as I hate it, it provided drama whether it came to the Kimi Antonelli and Charles Leclerc overtake. Well, incident. The Leclerc and Russell incident. Hamilton really struggling. Stroll really struggling. In fact, the only one that really was mastering the corner to start off with is Lando Norris, but just this sort of, it provides something a little bit different and makes overtaking interesting. And feels like actually it's a really good overtaking opportunity, just full stop, because there's multiple lines you can take through this corner. I hope that next year ends up being an absolute banger for Zandvoort, because this track needs to go out on a high. This needs to go out as being special. Because as much as, yeah, it's basically Verstappen propaganda, like I say, if you picked up this track and put it anywhere else in the world, it'll be just as special. It's got nothing to do with the fact that it's in the Netherlands and that Verstappen just so happens to be in the Netherlands. So, Zandvoort, if next year isn't last year, thank you for everything that you've given. Right, are you ready? Are you guys ready for the more positive news? Can you believe we've had our second lesser team podium of the year? After so many years where it was basically, if you weren't in a top 4 team, you weren't getting it. If you weren't Red Bull or Ferrari or Mercedes or McLaren, you weren't getting it. Maybe you'd be lucky if you got Aston Martin, but then they were part of the top 4 when they got it. This was genuinely out of the blue. But before I go into Isack Hadjar, the one thing I want to say is, can we not have ceramic trophies, please? I don't know if anyone saw the video, but Isack Hadjar basically broke the trophy accidentally while he was putting it down because the neck of the thing is so fragile. And we've been here before. Hungarian Grand Prix last year, Lando Norris broke Verstappen's trophy because it was ceramic. If you want them to look beautiful in ceramic, maybe give the drivers the plastic ones that they can, plastic copies of them they can parade around, and then give the ceramic one to them so they can look after it, basically. Because all the excitement and everything like that's just a side point. Beautiful trophy, and it's great that Isack Hadjar got it, and the celebrations were fitting of a guy's first podium. He was getting drenched by Oscar and Max. But let's touch on Isack a bit, or Isack. I feel like I've been saying Isack a lot over the past few days, but that's fine. That's another matter altogether. He has been through it all. When he was the first DNF in the season, and we saw him in Anthony Hamilton's arms and crying away, could you imagine we'd be here? What a rise this guy has had. He's gone from being the rookie to arguably the lead driver of VCARB, Vizcaya RB. And I had a little bit of fear when Laurent McKees went to Red Bull that it would tail off a bit, but it's kept on going. Isack Hadjar has still been qualifying well, still been performing well, qualified in 4th, almost becoming like the Sergio Perez. That's probably not the best thing to be talking about, but that's fine, right? In fact, can you imagine if someone told you, by the way, comment down below if I've got this wrong, but could you imagine if somebody told you that Isack Hadjar would get a podium before Tsunoda? Yuki Tsunoda. The guy that's been in the sport for what, 4 years? And this guy rocks up half a year later, gets a podium. And did well. There were arguments to be made that he was right on Verstappen's pace. And it's hard to argue against it. Now, yeah, the Red Bull is a dog, we know that, but this was still an amazing performance in difficult conditions and gets a well-deserved podium at the end of it. Fantastic. So the big question is, that everyone seems to end up asking is, well, that's it now. He's going to get promoted to Red Bull. This is where the rise happens. Well, hold on to that thought. Just hold back a bit. Because we seem to be getting a little bit... What's the word? Too quick to act when it comes to rookies. You know, this is a lesson, for example, for Alpine. This guy was at the lowest of the low and was seemingly like he wasn't even going to last 2 races, and half a season in, then he does well. Meanwhile, Alpine, after 5 races, don't really give a driver a chance, and he was outside the top 10. And I'm hearing comments that even Colapinto's now under pressure, which is good that he got his 11th place, because I think that might have released a bit of pressure on him. But all this pressure that there is, Antonelli's not getting the pressure because he got a podium, and Isack Hadjar is not getting the pressure right now. But Liam Lawson's been getting the pressure. Bortoleto, thankfully not, because Sauber have been doing well. Ollie Behrman, 50-50 on whether he's getting pressure, but it's... And Doohan and Colapinto. Teams seem so quick to promote them, and so when they're doing well, and so quick to drop them when they're performing poorly. This is careers that we're talking about here. These aren't toys. These drivers aren't toys. They're not things to be picked up and then thrown away when you don't want to play with them anymore. But we have to show care. As much care as we would with the trophy, right? Let Isack grow. Please let Isack just have at least this year to stay in Visa Cash Up RB. Stick around and just get used to things. We're finding it hard enough for older drivers to, when they're moving teams, to get used to a brand new car and a brand new team, and and losing a little bit of themselves for a little while. Even more so for a rookie. Because here's the thing, right? Someone like Lewis Hamilton or Fernando Alonso, if they were to be, let's say, dropped by a team, there'd be others that'd be interested in giving them a go. We've seen that with Cadillac. That Perez and Bottas have built up enough of a reputation about themselves that they would still be respected and chased by teams. And even if it doesn't work out there, then there's still IndyCar and other, that would give them a go. But the rookies, where do they turn? You could say Formula E, but that's getting stacked as well. If you've brought them into Formula 1, give them a chance to settle in Formula 1. Because likelihood is they can't go anywhere else for a while. Let them get used to the team. Let them get used to the family. I want Isack to do well. I really do. I love the guy. He seems like the very essence of a Formula 1 fan. Just so happened to be talented enough to be a driver. And those are the guys who want to stay. And the excitement that brings to the sport. The fact that France now has a third driver in there, and he's showing to be really, really good. And the experience that we've seen with Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon shows us, give him time. Yuki Tsunoda is not a bad driver, so doesn't deserve to be dropped. But that's not the reason why I'm saying that Isack Hadjar shouldn't be in Red Bull. It's just the fact, let him be. Let him enjoy the rare podiums and start climbing the ladder. Who knows, maybe in the future. The future finally is bright for Red Bull. But let's be honest, we've been here before with Red Bull, right? Red Bull was at a time, they had a situation where they had a fantastic lineup and more drivers coming through. The time when we had, alongside Verstappen, this is when Ricciardo left, we had Gasly, we had Albon. Well, look what's happened with them. They've not been bad drivers, they've not been given enough time. They could have been the Red Bull drivers, but they've now had to move elsewhere because maybe they weren't considered good enough that they could get there. Just let Isack have this year. He has grown so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much further he can grow. He's now one of those drivers like Pierre Gasly, like Sergio Perez used to be in the past, that if a race goes crazy, this guy could pick up the pieces. And I don't mean just podiums, I'm thinking maybe even the odd win. That if Monza 2019, was it, when Gasly won, that he basically would have done what Gasly did. He's getting to experience the thrill of having the team, at least half of the team, not wrapped around his finger, but he's got some measure of control. And let's be honest, Liam Lawson didn't do too bad, so it's not like he's got a bad driver that he's having to compete with. This is a genuine, heartwarming story. This is genuinely an amazing situation that's happened. Let's do what we can as a community so that this stays as a foundation for something better rather than a one-off positive in a bad situation because we haven't handled a rookie's career correctly. This has been absolutely amazing. I'm so happy for him. The guy that was described as embarrassing by Helmut Marko is now basically the second best Red Bull driver this season based on points. I'm pretty sure. It's amazing. It's brilliant. What's the phrase? What's the meme? Everyone like that. Good on you, Isack. Well done. See, I told you it'd be heartwarming in the end. Those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts, and even if we've spoken about it before, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And, well, the intensity ramps up because we now have Monza this weekend. Ferrari pain? Ferrari hysteria? What are we going to see elsewhere? We'll have to find out. Until then, guys, take care.